Well, this is a familiar scene. I'm driving in my van, you're standing there waiting for me to say stuff, and there's traffic coming up. What could be better? Today's little loaf comes to us from the painter, Vincent Van Gogh, and he says the following. Your profession is not what brings home your weekly paycheck. Your profession is what you're put here on earth to do, with such passion and such intensity that it becomes spiritual in calling. I recently discovered this Japanese concept called Ikey Guy, and it's basically 4 overlapping circles, each one representing a different aspect of your life. And the idea is that at the very center of these 4 overlapping circles, you find your Ikey Guy, your cause for being, your raison d'être, your purpose. And it's basically the center where your vocation and your passion and your skills and your aptitudes overlap. And so it's basically like, figure out what you can do for money, figure out what you could do for love, figure out what you're good at, and figure out what excites you. And then at the center of these 4 overlapping circles, you find your calling, your reason for being. And I think Vincent Van Gogh is describing that right now. He's not talking about your career or your job. He's talking about your Ikey Guy. He's talking about that thing that you are so passionate about. It becomes almost like a spiritual calling. It's something that calls from within. Because remember, my definition of spiritual is merely the inner world, the psyche. All the stuff that you can't find in the material universe, no matter how hard you try, yet nevertheless your entire existence is wrapped up in it. Consciousness. So when I say spiritual, that's what I'm referring to. When I talk about a spiritual calling, I'm talking about something that calls you from within. Something that calls you from within, and that kind of thing doesn't come with conditions. There's no price tag involved. It's something that you do because it feels right to do it, and there's no other reason needed or necessary. There may be other considerations, but truly you would be willing to do this free of charge, for its own sake. Way back at the very beginning of this channel, I made a really sloppy vlog video about the difference between your job and your work. You know, your work with a capital W. I really shit the bed in that video because I think it's a really important point, and I may revisit it. And in fact, I think I'm revisiting it now in this Daily Bread video, but I think it's important to distinguish between your job and your work, because your work is what you do out of love, out of passion. To me, your work is even more important than your job. Or I guess maybe I could say equally important, because it's hard to do your work if you don't have an income, or at least for me it is. But I think it's equally important to have your work. Because if all you have is a job, you may like your job, it may be an enjoyable job, but it's not going to fulfill you the same way your work will. It's not going to hit the same spot. It's not going to nourish you the same way your work with a capital W will nourish you. That's not to say that your work is always pleasant, always fun, always enjoyable. Only to say that even at its worst, your work is worth doing. For me, I used to think that my work was writing. I used to think that my work was to write these great, gigantic, imaginative fantasy novels, science fiction novels. And then I started to move away from that, not voluntarily, but after my cubicle epiphany, I just wasn't really as interested in that literary genre anymore. And I started reading a lot more philosophy and spiritual texts. And so then I started trying to write a book on that topic and about my experiences, my discoveries and such. And I struggled for a long time to do this. And eventually I had some breakthroughs and I managed to write it. But I didn't feel the same way about writing as I used to. And I realized I still love writing, but to me, writing was just a vehicle for what I truly love to do. Creation and communication. Those are the 2 things that I am extremely passionate about. And so writing for me has always just been a vehicle for those two callings. Because of course you can communicate through writing and you can also create through writing. But now I've discovered other mediums, and I've rediscovered older mediums that I used to love when I was a kid, like drawing. I used to draw all the time. I used to write comic books and I used to illustrate them. And I've recently rediscovered drawing. And in fact, my family's been out of town for the last 4 or 5 days, and to my shock and dismay, instead of using all of this free time to play video games and work out and do all the things that I thought I would be doing, I spent most of it drawing and painting and doing visual art. So to me, creation and communication are my callings. And since I got my new job position at the office here, I've managed to do a lot more of that. So I feel like maybe my job is also getting closer and closer to being my vocation, my Ikey Guy. Because that's what the whole point of this concept is. You're supposed to find something that makes you money, that you're good at, that you love doing, and that is helpful for the world or for the greater good. And I feel like maybe I'm getting closer to that now. It may not be dead center, but I'm definitely moving closer to the center. And it feels good to mix all of those things together, to be able to do what you love, what you're good at, and what you can get paid to do while also helping others. I think that's a pretty fantastic place to be in life, so I feel very blessed. But anyways, what's your Ikey Guy? What is your vocation? What is your profession? Your work with a capital W? What would you gladly do for free every day? Tell me all about it in the comments below. And bonus question, why aren't you doing it? So yes, tell me all about it in the comments below. I will wait your replies. And until then, don't forget to keep crushing. Don't just live well. Don't just do it well. Do it excellently. Do what Epictetus said. Put in an impeccable performance, my friends. Just fucking crush it, okay? It's Thursday, the glorious day of Thor. So go out there and strike lightning. Peace out.